Yeah, thank you all for coming. Let's go ahead and get started. So I'm Matt Kopek from the Ward 3 Council office. Thank you everybody for coming. Please go ahead, if you are not speaking, go ahead and mute yourself just to avoid any background noise. If you have any questions, just let us know as we go. I'll be monitoring the chat. So today's presentation is going to be by John and Jenny from Tucson and Clean and Beautiful. Before they start, I'll go ahead and have them introduce themselves. But to get us kicked off, I'm going to throw it over to the council member from Ward 3, Karen Ulick.
Thanks, Matt, and thank you, everybody. It's great to see some wonderful, familiar faces who I know you all invest so much in Tucson, in your own homes and properties, as well as your neighborhoods and the community. So I'm excited to join, just to welcome everybody and thank you. And also, of course, to thank Ernesto and Matt from my staff for pulling this off, as well as John and Jenny from Tucson Clean and Beautiful. So it's great to be able to join you ever so briefly, just to say thank you, and I'll hope to see you out there again very soon. And I'll turn it back over to Matt.
All right, thank you. So yeah, so just and a quick reminder, this in season 2 there'll be this session, and we have another one on April 1st, which is neighborhood traffic calming, which we will have representatives from the Tucson Transportation and Mobility Department to talk about that as well. But over the previous season and just generally, we've gotten a lot of questions about both that topic and the one for tonight, which is green stormwater infrastructure. So with that, we are really excited for John and Jenny to go ahead and give us a good overview of the program and let us know what it's all about. So John and Jenny, if you want to introduce yourselves and then take it away.
Thank you for having us. I'm Jenny Moscato. I have been a program manager of the Green Stormwater Infrastructure Program for about 2 years now, Tucson Clean and Beautiful, and really excited to kick off our new program and doing this intro for it with Ward 3.
And I'm John Choi, very similar introduction. We both co-manage the same program, so it's the GSI mini grants program. And then we're also involved with some of the other green infrastructure initiatives at Tucson Clean and Beautiful. But tonight we'll specifically be talking about the GSI mini grants program. And we have a presentation, so I'm gonna take a shot at sharing that. And we'll get right into it. Can I see some thumbs up if you can see that? Okay, perfect. Is it big enough for everybody on your screens, or because I could zoom in if I need to? Good, okay. So tonight we're going to go through a little bit of program information, just brief you on who TCB is, what the GSI mini grants program is. We'll share some project examples. We'll get into how you can apply for the grants, and then open it up for questions at the end. And Jenny and I are going to try to breeze through the presentation and then just open it up so we can have more of a conversation and field some questions. All right, so Tucson Clean and Beautiful, we're a long-standing environmental nonprofit. So we've been in operation here in Tucson for, I think, over 35 years. And we bring community groups together to partake in high-impact greening and river cleanup projects to empower and connect our communities. And we do a lot of tree planting as part of that cooling initiative as well. And on staff, we have people trained in sustainability. We have 4 certified arborists. Many of us studied landscape architecture and are landscape designers. We work with interns from the U of A. And then everybody who's hired has to be a tree lover. So we're all card-carrying tree lovers as well. And TCB itself has a lot of really beneficial partnerships with different city departments. So we work with Department of Transportation, Tucson Water, Environmental Services, Parks and Rec. And that really allows us to effectively bridge the gap between some of the local government and departments and the community. And it allows us to do a lot of the work that we do. So today we're going to talk about the GSI mini grants program. This was launched in January 2021, very similar to our previous stormwater harvesting grant program called the Neighborhood Scale Stormwater Harvesting Grant, which was in operation for 3 years and ended in 2020. And so the grants provide community groups resources to plan and implement neighborhood scale stormwater harvesting installations. And we can do this work on most city-owned properties, public areas. We can work in the roadways, at the parks, vacant city-owned lots, or Tucson water well sites have also been really great locations for us. And this program was developed in partnership with Tucson Water, and it's funded through the Conservation Fund. So that's pulled off of everybody's water bill, just a small percentage, and that goes into different conservation programming. So each ward is allocated approximately $40,000 per year for these projects, and that goes towards implementing multiple projects ideally.
So before we get into the goals of the program, I thought we could briefly go over what green stormwater infrastructure is. So it's a type of practice of using natural systems or engineered systems that mimic natural processes to capture and clean stormwater that falls on our streets in our city. And with these stormwater harvesting features that supports vegetation to shade and cool streets and buildings, and that can help reduce flooding, create wildlife habitat, and provides a lot of other services and benefits to the environment as well as our communities. So the goal of the GSI mini grants program is to work with neighborhood groups to implement projects that are stormwater harvesting and will build climate resilient communities throughout the city. And we are really wanting to work alongside neighborhood groups in a participatory green infrastructure, in implementing these participatory green infrastructure projects to enhance public open space and improve environmental health and quality of life. We'll go through different types of common GSI projects and then get more into detail about a few specific projects we've done. So we can take undeveloped or vacant parcels and turn them into beautiful pocket parks for community use. There's also curb extensions that can calm traffic and collect stormwater in the street. There's traffic circles that removes asphalt impervious surface and also provides traffic calming and a beautiful space in the street. And we've also done GSI projects at city parks. And then just a few more, retrofitting medians, so bare medians that may not have any vegetation in them, we can retrofit those and add in tree canopy, pollinator plants. Simple curb cuts and back of curb basins along neighborhood streets. There's also street side basins on streets that don't have curbs. So those are very cost effective. And then pretty much the most basic is just neighborhood tree planting. And now we'll get into a few project examples and tell you about how Tucson Clean and Beautiful got involved in those projects and with those neighborhood groups. So the first one was in Ward 1, Barrio Santa Cruz. This came to Tucson Clean and Beautiful's attention because the neighborhood streets were repaved, and this actually created some nuisance flooding in certain spots throughout the neighborhood. So the neighborhood association brought this to the Ward 1 staff's attention, and Ward 1, knowing that the Tucson Clean and Beautiful was doing neighborhood scale stormwater harvesting, got us in touch with the neighborhood association, and through a lot of communication, site visits, and community outreach, we were able to build 14 back behind the street. So between the roadway and private property, we're able to implement over a dozen basins. And those are now being cared for by the neighborhood association and homeowners. After this project was implemented, we kept in touch with the neighborhood association, and we kind of were talking about how we could do even more in that neighborhood. And we were able to come back just a couple months after the project was built and do one of our neighborhood tree plantings, which is through our Trees for Tucson program. But that's just a really great way for Tucson Clean and Beautiful to come back and stay in touch with the neighborhood group. And a total of over 70 trees were planted in just a few months in this neighborhood. And we plan on going back every year or every other year to do more neighborhood tree plantings.
And the next project we'll look at, this is an example of a vacant parcel that we were able to work with the neighborhood group to turn into a pocket park. So we were attending a neighborhood meeting back when you can do those in person. And that happened to be an adjacent neighborhood to Barrio Viejo in Barrio Santa Rosa. And at that meeting, we were talking about our green infrastructure grant programs. And we met Pedro Gonzalez, who actually lived in Barrio Viejo. And he had a really awesome opportunity and was super excited to take us over there to take a look. So after seeing the site and learning more about the neighborhood's issues on the parcel, so they're having some water shed from the parcel into the adjacent properties, they're having people dumping and parking on here, and they really wanted to find some sort of solution. So we worked with them. We partnered with the Fire Central Station, which is just adjacent there. You can see it in the background. And we also work with Parks and Rec on this one. So since Parks and Rec was managing the landscape at Fire Central, they were a partner on this, and they actually were able to offer us irrigation system for the site. So it was a really good collaboration between the community, Tucson Clean and Beautiful, the fire station, and Parks and Rec. And we were able to turn this parcel into a pollinator walkway garden with native trees and shrubs, and just completely transform the space. So you can see on the left here, this is soon after the construction was complete. And then I think about 8 months later, we went back and everything was just exploding with growth and blooms, and there was butterflies and hummingbirds flying around. So it was really cool. And the neighborhood group has been taking care of it. So they've been maintaining it through our Adopt a Site program, and it's been really successful. And then the last project we'll talk about tonight is a traffic circle. And this was a neighborhood group who was aware of the grant program and just had an issue with unsafe, unclear intersection, not marked very well. This is in the San Gabriel neighborhood, large expanse of asphalt and lots of water flowing down it. So they thought it was a great opportunity to calm traffic, clarify it, but then also take advantage of that water. So we installed this 2,500 square foot traffic circle, 50 feet in diameter, which harvests a lot of water, native vegetation, seed mix, and completely transformed it. And you can see there in the middle, after a rain event, how much water pools there. And the reports from the neighborhood are that a lot of the unsafe driving practices have been calmed by this. And it's just really nice to be able to come back and watch some of the seed mix sprout and see those trees continuing to grow, and know that this was just the big expansive asphalt that's been totally transformed. And finally, we wanted to talk about how to apply. So we've tried to make several options for application just to simplify the process. So on our website, we have the application available. You can download that and you can fill that out digitally and submit it by email. Or if you prefer, you can print it, mail it to us, drop it off. We'd probably even be happy to come pick that up. Jenny and I are also always available to do presentations with neighborhood groups and help them through their application process. And then in some cases, if you just see an opportunity and you want to snap a photo and share that with us, you can submit photos and we can work on different ways to complete an application or work through how your project proposal. So maybe you see an area with some flooding, we can help the neighborhood group envision different GI strategies to address that, and then work with them to complete an application. And we accept applications all throughout the year. We have a rolling review cycle. So you can submit that anytime, and then within 3 months, the application will get reviewed and we'll let you know what the next steps might be. So some helpful documents that we have available online, and we'll also make them available through the ward office, are the program introduction application doc. And then we have a cheat sheet, which just details a bunch of different project types, just very general ballpark costs, what these projects can address, information like that. And we have some contact information here. We can also share this presentation with the ward, and you can have a copy of this as well. But at this point, we will just open it up for questions. And again, thank you everybody for joining us, and thank you to the Ward 3 office for having us out.
Great. Excellent. Well, thank you so much for the presentation. If anybody has questions, go ahead and raise your hand, either physically or the raise hand feature. And to get us started with questions, I will turn it over to Sarah in our office to go ahead and ask the first question.
Okay, it's so nice to be here. Thanks so much, John and Jenny. So I have a couple questions for you that I hope you might be able to answer and just kind of help get some juices flowing for us. So first of all, you know, I know that I like to dream really big. So when I'm looking at, you know, the street where my home is or the street where my office is, I have big plans. Given the dollars that are available through the GSI mini grants, what are some of the more, you know, if I was to start talking with my neighbors, what's the kind of scale that I should be thinking about in terms of an achievable project within the kind of confines of this particular mini grant program? And then an additional question to that too is, you know, for many of our Ward 3 neighborhoods, they can experience some pretty intense flooding. And so how should we have what are appropriate expectations that neighbors can have in terms of how GSI projects can contribute to reducing some of the flooding? And are there some best practices in terms of helping us kind of think through that as we're kind of dreaming up some of our potential projects?
Mm-hmm. I'll take the first question and then maybe John can tackle the second one. So ideally, we would like to fund multiple projects per year and really make that money stretch and impact, you know, more than just one street in Ward 3 per year. So cost effectiveness of the project is a big thing that we review, and it's something that we start talking about right away with the neighborhood groups that approach us. So like the big ideas you're talking about, Sarah, maybe is like, you know, an unclear intersection and it's like a 5-way intersection, just a huge expanse of asphalt, and, you know, a traffic triangle or like big traffic circle would really help solve some like minor flooding issues and clear up traffic patterns maybe. Depending on a few things, depending on, sorry, I'm admitting people to the meeting. Depending on Oh gosh, I lost my train of thought. Oh, sometimes there is too much flooding for a GSI project to be built in the middle of a street, for example. It can be a safety issue if there's like in a rain event, there's water that goes like fills the street up to the top of the curb. Then if we were to build a traffic circle in the road, that would basically disappear during a rain event. So it's from TDOT's or the transportation department's perspective, that would be a safety hazard. So big ideas are great to start with, and then John and I can work with you to kind of maybe tackle it in a slightly different way. But there's other options besides the GSI mini grants to, capital projects are going to deal with really big flooding issues, and that's not something that we can really handle with the amount of funds that we have every year. Let's see.
I could jump in.
Yeah.
And like Jenny said, we encourage that big thinking. We're there. We want to hear those big ideas. We talk quite a bit with Tucson Water, the bigger GSI program managers. So we're always interested and want to hear the big ideas. And when we come out on site, we can kind of take more of an incremental approach. And just part of this program is just to get more people talking, sharing information, and learning more about green infrastructure. So while we might not be able to solve those flooding problems, we could have some sort of small impact and pull small amounts of that and take advantage of that to plant trees and have pollinator gardens. And oftentimes that gets people excited in the neighborhood and interested to see what other options there are. So the city has rebates for installing active systems, so rainwater tanks, and more people doing that can pull more water away and start to help with some of those flooding issues as well. But we always try our best to set realistic expectations, especially now that we've done this for a couple of years. We want neighborhood groups to remain excited, but we also are pretty forward with the fact that it's unlikely that we're going to solve any major issues, but we can definitely pull some of that water away, maybe shorten the amount of time that water is ponding in certain areas. But keep thinking big, and let's figure out ways to solve the problems ultimately. But we're probably just taking incremental approaches at that.
Okay. Thank you. All right, our next question is from Margie Mortimer.
Hi. I got two questions. The first one is, you mentioned a pocket park. What size is a pocket park?
I think technically it's a quarter acre or something. It really depends. We're just giving it a name. The parcels that we've worked on, I would say are like a quarter acre or so. Sometimes they're on old Tucson water well sites. And like the example John had was probably just like a leftover piece from the fire station. Yeah, I think pocket parks tend to be a quarter to half an acre.
Okay, so
yeah.
You folks would have to come in and take a good look at where it's at. So, okay.
Yeah, there's no size limit though.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. So the next question I had is, can you come in and do a project after a traffic circle has already been put in?
Yeah, we definitely have done some in-street retrofits. So where a traffic circle has been installed, we've come in with some projects and actually removed some of the asphalt from there and made planting areas and excavated for a little bit of stormwater harvesting. Other conditions that we've seen are traffic circles that were installed, but they don't have any vegetation. And if there's no underground utility constraints, then yes, we can definitely come in and add trees and other plants in there.
Okay, because we've had a couple put in and they're just gravelled in, so we weren't really
Yeah,
given much of a choice on that. So, but anyway, something to look forward to and look ahead and maybe try to do. Okay, thank you.
absolutely. Yeah, please reach out to us and we can set up a time to come out to your neighborhood and take a look at those.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
And just really quick, Margie, what neighborhood are you in?
Barrio Nopal.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, you might want to reach out to the Ward 1 office as well.
Okay.
We actually saw some of those today. We're doing a tree planting in the neighborhood and we were checking some of those tree locations and I saw some of those new traffic circles.
Yeah,
So
there's a
it does
story.
look like, yeah.
Yeah, I'm aware of the tree planting. There's a I didn't get that communication in time with that.
uh,
So when that date was made, I didn't get we didn't get a chance to be involved in that date thing. So I would like to reach out to you folks that later and try that again. Is that a certain time of the year that only gets done?
Yeah, we try to do it in the cool season, and I apologize that you weren't able to take advantage, but we'll definitely come back next year and do it again. So there'll be another opportunity.
Oh, great. Okay. Sounds good. Thank you.
Sure.
Awesome. All right, and next question, Matthew Vasquez.
Okay, I'm unmuted now.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, briefly, just to follow up on what John and Jenny was just saying, and then I think Sarah, in terms of helping, inquiring for help with organizing our project in our neighborhood, is it better to go through our ward office? I'm in Ward 3, or to John and Jenny directly? I hear both being said.
Sarah, you wanted to? Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. I would say I think it's always a good idea to let your ward office know that you're interested. Because typically with the mini grants, we need to write you a letter of support once you get to the point where you're putting the proposal forward. So just flagging it for us is great. You know, we will ultimately want to connect you with John and Jenny, right? To start having those conversations and doing the visioning work. You know, so really John and Jenny are kind of your go-to, they're your team to kind of develop the proposal and figure out how to move it forward. We can certainly help you in terms of you know, if you're in an area where there's not already an active neighborhood association, helping to maybe connect you with any other contacts we might have in the area, or if there is an active neighborhood association that, you know, you're not already plugged into, to help get you plugged into. So we can be an additional support, but John and Jenny are definitely the experts on the ground when it comes to the GSI mini grant. I
I'm
hope that
currently,
helps.
that does help. I'm currently working on a subcommittee with in my neighborhood association. So it's best to come to you first as a group.
I think any way you go, it's okay if you reach out to John and Jenny first. Just you know, flag it for us at some point, you know. But and I'll just speak for myself, and you know, Matt might say otherwise, but it's great for us to know if you're working on something, just so we have it kind of on our radar, right? So each ward is allocated $45,000 a fiscal year that can go towards mini grant programs, or projects, I should say. And so, you know, we could have numerous neighborhoods putting together proposals. So it's helpful for us to just kind of have an idea of what might be coming up, so that if there are more people who have projects kind of coming up on the queue, then that can be funded. There's an opportunity for us to, along with Tucson Clean and Beautiful, kind of have some of those conversations with neighborhoods. As Jenny had mentioned earlier, you know, the goal is to kind of spread the wealth around. so that as many parts of the ward are able to benefit from GSI. And so it's helpful for us to just kind of know what you're working on. Of course, John and Jenny kind of track it in the same way, right? So we try and stay in communication. I hope that helps. Long story short, there's no right or wrong way to do it. You definitely want to reach out to Tucson Clean and Beautiful and kind of start brainstorming ideas with them, figuring out the feasibility of it. And you know, let us know that you're working on it. And certainly when you think that you're ready to kind of finalize a proposal, you'll need to reach out to us anyway, because you'll want to get a letter of support from the council member.
And how does the budgeting or allocation of funds work over time? There are, I guess, 3 cycles per year over 3 years, and we're already into the first cycle. So what does that look like for one neighborhood amongst, you know, as many as there could be applying for Ward 3 as a whole?
It
I don't know if
depends.
you've seen the film series, The Hunger Games, but Sarah, go ahead.
I think Jenny was offering some insights here.
I was just going to say it depends. I mean, it's going to look different for every ward, and it's going to look different this year in Ward 3 than it does next year. So because we have the review cycles, and we're not calling them deadlines because we don't want people like feeling rushed to get something in before a certain date, but so we have a review panel, and as those project proposals come in, we're channeling them to our review panel, who gives them points based on certain criteria. And if Ward 3 happens to have 8 amazing sounding projects that come in this year, our review panel is going to rank those for us. And I mean, funds will get allocated as projects come in, or project proposals come in. And yeah, if you're one of the first neighborhood groups to send us a project proposal, doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get that fully funded, because we will want to, you know, we'll rank it and go over the pluses and minuses of it. But we'll also want to hold on to it maybe and see if there's more projects coming in from a neighborhood that has lower tree canopy or less green space or more flooding issues. And so we want to be really strategic about how we spend the funds, but also we want people who want these projects and want to care for these projects to also get something great for their neighborhood. But we are also trying to be very equitable about how we distribute those funds to different areas of the ward.
May I ask one more question?
Please.
So more on a practical level, or could you say a little bit more about public spaces? The application or the actual building or the kind of issues you're looking, they have to be limited to public space, not crossover into private. And where's that boundary? Is that, you know, could you say more? Because in our neighborhood, it's a sidewalkless neighborhood, and there's a lot of crossover between the street to the right of way to people's properties, and or parks, you know, there's this free flow.
Yeah, so a good resource just to better understand public versus private would be Map Tucson or Pima Maps. You can take a look there and see the designation, but public park, like City of Tucson Park, that's fair game. those right-of-way areas are fair game. We do need to reserve at least a 5-foot clear zone for walking. But if you had, you know, a 12-foot right-of-way, then there's potentially possibilities there. In streets are possible as well, but oftentimes those projects can be a little cost prohibitive. Just the cost of installing, you know, smaller in-street projects, we just can't get the economy of scale benefit. So, but yeah, those areas that you described, most of them should be fair game outside of on any of the homeowners' properties.
And is there any limit if water were to flow from one to the other in terms of how where you're wanting us to focus? In terms of what if right-of-way water is flowing into private property by history already, you know?
I'm not sure I fully understand that without seeing it in person, but I'm leaning towards no. I mean, we don't want to cause or, you know, possibly cause any sort of flooding issues on private property. So that's a concern. Like if there's a lot of flow on a street and we're trying to cut a curb and bring it in, we don't want to jeopardize anybody's property by bringing too much water in. But we've never felt limited to the water that we're harvesting based on ownership of areas.
Is there a way to consult like with a city engineer to just vet it before we present it as a application?
Yeah, I mean, we always encourage neighborhood groups to bring us out to the sites and walk first, but then we work with Department of Transportation. So they have a landscape architect and then some other engineers that we can consult with. But it's good typically kind of early on to start a conversation, loop us in so we can help with some of that and connect you to some of those people as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Matthew. Does anybody else have questions?
I do if nobody else does. But I want to wait. I'd like to give others a chance.
No, totally. I totally understand and thank you. So unless someone speaks up, I will turn it over to Matthew to ask another question. Go ahead.
So as a result, just to continue on that theme, one of the issues, I'm just curious how this rolls out in our neighborhood is because there's no curbing and we have free water flow from street to right away to private property back and forth. Sometimes there's a tendency for private homeowners to berm up along their property. And then inevitably the vegetation that's behind that, and we have some 80 to 100-year-old mesquite, trees and so forth, that they start to get water starved. And I'm envisioning a neighborhood-wide way to try to build some sort of, like you do curb cutting, where there's curb parts of the street. Is there a safe way to do berm cutting, so to speak, or a way to work with that? Does that make sense as a viable issue in terms of the whole neighborhood to help preserve? We're losing our mesquite riparian area, on private and public areas. So it's kind of a concern, and others too.
Yeah, well, we wouldn't be able to, if those mesquites were on private property, we wouldn't be able to bring stormwater from the streets or the right of way onto the private property. But oftentimes, I mean, I don't know the condition without seeing it, but oftentimes even just creating those basin areas adjacent to mature trees, the roots may be able to access some of that water. So if we were able to create areas where we could sink a lot of that water in close proximity, maybe that's a like a creative solution to this issue, maybe the trees could then still benefit from harvesting some of that water. But yeah, it sounds like we need to go for a walk in your neighborhood and get a better sense of this.
I look forward. I will follow up through the proper channels, and I look forward to that. Thank you.
Great. And I actually think I saw maybe an email come in through there's a GSI portal. Did you happen to reach out to us through that?
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, we'll be in touch with you soon.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Great.
Awesome.
Colleen, it looks like you have your hand up.
There we go. Okay, yes, I do. Thank you. You did talk quite a bit about this, but again, since there's limited funding per ward, I'm in Jefferson Park, which is in Ward 3. Do you have sort of an average cost per project that you like to, oh, sorry, here comes the ambulances. Is there an average cost per project that you like to earmark? I know you said it's really based on need and like how flooded areas are getting and I guess the most environmentally impactful projects that you could select. But in terms of the actual costs, I mean, if you could say a little bit more about that, either Ward 3 or Tucson Clean and Beautiful, John and Jenny, it would be great.
I'll say a little something. It's really hard to put an average cost on it.
Mm-hmm.
I would say a target for us with that 40,000, but this is also, the ward office has a lot of influence on this as well. But from our perspective, we'd love to spread the funds out across maybe 4 to 5 projects per year. Again, it's really hard to put an average cost to it. Some of those projects might be a little less expensive, some might be more. I think the cheat sheet document that we have might be a helpful way just to illustrate what certain things might cost and what's on the lower end of the project types as well. But maybe Ward 3 has more to say about that, but they have a lot of influence. So you really want to get on their good side, I think.
Yeah, and yes, it looks like with some of the examples that you presented, that you did collaborate with different entities in the city. For example, we have some Park Tucson funds coming through that we want to spend on what we're calling traffic calming, but obviously those are things that we'd like to do, like curb extensions, maybe a traffic circle, everything landscaped and collecting water and that kind of thing. So, but it sounds like that's something you do on a regular basis. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely. We'd love to be looped into those conversations and working with Department of Transportation as well. So yes, definitely.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Colleen, I love that you asked that question because it's a great setup for Matt to share about our next info session that we have coming up for neighborhoods as we kind of wind down our conversation this evening.
Yeah, thank you. You really teed it up. So our next session is going to be on neighborhood traffic calming, and this is going to be more direct strategies versus some of the things we've talked about tonight. So speed humps, closing streets, things like that, which we will have representatives from the Transportation and Mobility Department to go over the tools that they have in their toolbox to address traffic nuisance issues in neighborhoods. So yes, you have that to look forward to as well.
And what day is that?
That is Thursday, April 1st at 5:30.
Excellent. Excellent. And if you haven't already registered for that, we will definitely have information on how to register for it in our Friday newsletter, which will be going out tomorrow. You can also contact either Matt or Ernesto or I for that link as well. Any other final comments? Lingering questions before we wind down?
If anything comes up, please reach out anytime. We'll make the presentation available too with our contact information.
Thank you.
That's right. And also just a reminder, this session is being recorded, so we'll be able to, you'll be able to relive it. So it looks like we have one final question from Margie. You want to go ahead?
Actually, it's not a question. I just want to thank you folks for doing these sessions. It's been really helpful. There's a time or two that I've not been able to attend because of a coalition meeting at the same time. So, but I really, really do appreciate you doing this. It's very helpful.
Thank you.
Question.
Go ahead.
How do we, is there a cache? How do we access or share this with our neighbors after the fact?
Yeah, so what I usually do is once I get this uploaded to YouTube, I will send out an email to everybody that has registered for it, letting them know that it's online. So hopefully maybe even tomorrow, but by Monday, I'll send an email out to everybody here with John's presentation, John and Jenny's presentation, and a link to the video.
I assume it's okay to share it with neighbors.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, with that, I want to say thank you everybody for coming. We really do appreciate it. And thank you, John and Jenny, for spending your evening with us, educating us on this great program. So I'm sure we'll be in touch soon with all of you, and we look forward to seeing some great projects come along in Ward 3. So thank you.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
thank you,
you.
everybody. Nice to meet you all.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Stay safe.
Bye.